This was Susan when she was approximately, I cannot remember exactly, but when she was approximately 2 years old. And she had been with us about as long as anything else. She was one of the family from then on. Want me to go on?
Sure.
And this was me when I was about the same age as Susan. And then over here is Mary in different 6 months, 2 years, 6 years, and 12 years. Brother John, myself when I was in the Air Force, and my brother Britt. This is Gary and Susan at their younger years. And Eric and Aaron. Mary and Jack are the daughter. And their children, Paul, Alice, Lisa, and Allison. Ray and I. This was my father and my mother when I was approximately 7 years old. And they thought their family was complete at that time, but then they produced 2 little boys that irritated me. And this is Ray's father, Clarence Vick, and his mother, Nevada Vick. My grandparents, Della and John Behringer, and my mother and dad, Nettie and Britt Turner.
Lisa. A wonderful time.
And some drunks came up and joined us singing happy birthday to her. Together in 1937, he was going with my roommate, and this was on her side of the dresser, and it wasn't very long till it moved to my side of the dresser. Jack was taking pictures out at 12:03, and he took that picture of Mother, which I think there's also some in the other room. My father, a friend of ours, painted that portrait of him from a little snapshot.
Always coming to me for advice, and looked around and I tried to guide them and help them all I could. And that's what I'd like to do for you boys too. If we could ever get together, if I could ever help you or tell you anything that would help, why, we'd sure like to be with you. Oh, Paul don't take my advice at all. He just goes on and on. Although he's an awful good boy. I have given him lots of things that I have had, and he appreciates them and tells me he likes them and so on. So now that he's off to school and he's 19 and be out on his own before long, and he won't need me anymore. And that's what's bad, when the boys grow up and so on and don't need their granddad anymore. Well, then that's bad. Isn't very often we get to see you anymore, and so we want you to come back. We'll try and get out to see you for long, okay? Yeah.
When I was very young and before little Mary was born, my mother had a sister by the name of Mitty, and she loved her sister dearly. And she had red hair like I used to have. And when Mary was born, she wanted her to call me Mimi because that's what her sister Mitty's children called her. Well, I thought Mimi sounded kind of like a French dancer, and I really didn't like it. I'd rather have been called Grandma. And I tried to get your daddy to say Grandma when he was little, and all he would say was Ma. And I'd say Grandpa, and he'd say Pa. And I wasn't going to go through life being called Ma and Pa. That sounds awful, doesn't it? So that's why I'm called Mimi. Well, let me see. What can we tell about your Grandma Susan? Except when I had to give her shots, we had to run and catch her first. And then great grandfather over there had to hold her down while I gave them. We took she and Mary to the ocean, and I think that was about the first time she ever saw the ocean. And they both were wading out, and a big wave came in and knocked them off of their feet and just put them right up into the sand, and both of them had burns on their legs where the water shot them across the sand.
Was it funny?
I laughed, but they didn't think it was funny. But I did.
I think it would be funny.
You know what I liked the best was
What?
your name. I love the name Jacob. Do you know what it reminds me of?
What?
Jacob's ladder. Did you ever climb Jacob's ladder? You didn't. Your Grandma Susan, when her mother was a little girl, we were neighbors, and we went to school together, and we were the very best of friends. And one day, she got real sick, and your Grandma Susan was a little girl. When her mother got sick, she was about 10 years old. And her mother got sick and sicker, and then one day Jesus took her home to be with him. And before that, why, she had a lawyer come to the house and fix it all up so your Grandma Susan could be our very own. And the day the papers were signed, she ran out the house and she said, "Guess what? I've been willed to you." And on her 14th birthday, she came to live with us. And we had fun. Even with her left hand, we had fun. And do you know what she liked to eat the best at that time?
Well,
Peanut butter. She had been at our house for several weeks, and she never called me anything. We talked, but I didn't have a name. And so one night I went in and I sat on her bed, and I said, "Now, honey, I want to be called something. I have a name. You can call me Dell, or you can call me Auntie, or whatever you desire." And she started crying, and she said, "I would like to call someone Mother." And I said, "Okay, that will be fine." And that's the way it has been now for 40-some years. Gary, when he was just a kid too, he was out at the air base here, and he would come to the house, and he and your grandma, they courted for a long time, and then they got married.
Three brothers and three sisters. We had a big family, and we traveled in an old model, new Model T Ford then, and Father built a house on this here, and all of us lived in this house until we got down into Texas, down there where my mother's mother lived, my grandmother. We went down there with her, and we lived with her for about a year and a half, and she had some more property up in Fort Worth, Texas. So we went up there to take care of her property up in Fort Worth. And then she finally sold that, and so we moved to Sherman, Texas in 1929. And there I finished school and went to school, and high school. I played football, and we done everything there, and all the rest of the family grew up. I moved around so much when I was going to school, like if you moved from one town to another, at that time, they put you back what they call one semester. That has had the school year divided into halves, and they put you back a half a year. So I went through the 6th grade. When I got to the 6th grade, I went through the 6th grade twice. I went through the low 6th, they called it low and high, and I went through the low 6th grade, and then I moved. I went through the low 6th grade again, and then I got through the high 6th, and that's what it was. That's what I missed a whole lot. So it took me an extra year to get through school than it does a lot of people.
When I missed some days, I had to bring some work. The days I worked.
You may make it up, have to make up that work, huh?
Yeah, I had to do that work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how I started books was I had to spell words first before I could read. So I had to spell like to the like into and stuff, the easy words. And then I started to read easy books, and then I started to go up some levels.
Mm-hmm. Well, we had to, when I was in school, in high school anyway, we had to read so many books and make book reports on them. And that's what you had to do to even graduate. That was part of our English class. And you had to read so many books, and then they give you a certificate with each book you read and made a report on. Why they used to give us a certificate or an award like for reading those books and so on. I notice a lot of them in schools now are doing about the same thing, and we used to do that when I was real small.
Well, how your way is kind of how mine was. Well, but just that the teacher has to know what level you're on, and right now I'm on the 3rd level of books.
Well, I think I always liked. I liked everything studied. So. I liked. Well, you have probably about the mechanical drawing, where you draw all different kinds of objects and so on, and machinery and so on, where you work with blueprints. That's what I studied all during school. I studied blueprints. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, but I never did get to go. But I studied all that, and after I went to work out to California, I went to night school. And even when I worked, I went to night school and studied be a mechanical engineer. But I never did finish school, and I wish now that I had finished. Because that's something that I think everybody should be, is do everything they can to know what they want to do. And that's what you want to do. Do everything you can to make the best you can in anything you want.
I love you.
We love you too, honey. And we do appreciate, we're so nice that you have come to see us, and we just love you, wish we could be with you more. But we're so far apart. Old great-granddad is 86 now, we're 86 and a half years old, and still getting around good, Catholic folks, and maybe we can get to go see you.